the kind of clinical protocol for psilocybin work with people with depression, it's basically two therapists sitting in a room with someone lying on a bed with headphones on, eye shades on, listening to a playlist, and you have some preparation therapy and the whole session, and then you have some integration therapy afterwards. And really, yeah, it's about kind of just support. It's a really nice human context. It's very different to normal psychiatric services where there's a kind of expert professional that's very neutral and very blank and very boundary and kind of separate. It's much more human. And obviously it's a really long session because it's like 6 hours with someone on a psilocybin session. So it's quite different. But the first study had these amazing results. And I do think there's an element that we have to be a little bit careful with how amazing the results are, because in a study like that, there's a lot of expectation. And people are all taking part in the study and they want it to work, and they, there's that sense as well of the kind of wanting to please the researchers, even unconsciously, So I think the results have been really amazing, but yeah. And actually the second study that we did was very interesting in that we compared antidepressant medication to high-dose psilocybin, and actually they both came out as very effective. So it wasn't like psilocybin was a million miles better than antidepressant medication. It was a bit better, but not significantly better. So they both were effective, which I think is important to remember as well, with all the kind of hype about psychedelics and excitement that, we can get a bit over enthusiastic.
That's interesting. Actually, Robin wrote a bit of a kind of corollary to that. Did you see the Robin's article he wrote for Chacruna or something like that? No, it was actually on their own Imperial website.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because although psilocybin came out a little bit better, but not significantly better than the escitalopram, it was only on the specific measure. They had to choose a depression scale, of which there are many, to kind of base their main findings on. But it turns out the other measure, I'm not sure which one it was, the HAM-D or the QIDS or something, HAM-D, turns out it was significantly better. Yeah. So it was kind of just a bit of a gamble, really. It's like going to the bookies and go, we have to put your money on one horse, and there's all these other horses in the race, and they all kind of win, but that horse just kind of had a kind of neck and neck. So on the other measures, it did come out better, but the way that it was kind of forced to report it was that it was as good as, if not, which is quite kind of curious way in which they have this extremely cautious way of reporting clinical trials.
Yes.
But it certainly works, it would seem.
Yeah. I mean, what was really interesting about the design of that study is that everybody, whether they were in the escitalopram, so the SSRI group, or the psilocybin group, everybody went through the same therapy protocol. So I think one of the reasons why both groups did really well is that the SSRI group weren't just given a packet of pills. So in our healthcare system, if you go to your GP, you'll usually get like a 10-minute consultation. And if you're suffering from depression, they'll usually give you SSRIs without much extra support. It's here's a packet of pills. If you're lucky, you get some therapy alongside it, but it's probably CBT, and there are limitations with that for many people. So the way in our study, the way SSRIs were given was everybody went through the same therapy protocol. So the SSRI group had the same number of sessions and everything else, and they also had these like music meditation sessions, because the psilocybin session is like a 6-hour music meditation. So we compared the psilocybin group had psilocybin plus 6 hours of music meditation. The SSRI group had 1 milligram psilocybin and a 6-hour music meditation session. And what we found is that both groups, the high dose psilocybin groups and the low dose psilocybin groups, had really profound experiences in those music meditations. So I think in a way, my conclusion after all of it was that, psilocybin is amazing, and it's an amazing tool for opening people up. But actually, presence, care, music, support, respect, the time to really sit with people, all of those things allowed people had some amazing, deep responses to the visualizations that we did. And some people that were in the low dose genuinely thought they'd had high dose psilocybin. So that was interesting to me.
That is kind of brilliant. I mean, it's not really testing psilocybin against, I can't actually say it, escitalopram. It's one of those things, isn't it, where they chose psilocybin to be the kind of psychedelic poster drug because nobody could pronounce it. Now, I can have no problem pronouncing it. I just can't pronounce your standard psychiatric drugs. Escitalopram, whatever it is. Anyway, so that this SSRI wasn't really a kind of how SSRIs are used. So it was really just a kind of, is it as good as psilocybin psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, but without the psychedelic, which is really interesting. And I guess the thing is with psychedelics, they are, as the word implies, mind manifesting, you know. So if you create this lovely environment and encourage people to go internally, it will just kind of ramp up the volume on that kind of inner journey. It's super interesting stuff. I mean, didn't they? And then in the original, well, not the original, the Hopkins studies with psilocybin mystical experience, they still found people having mystical experiences in the control condition where they were just listening to evocative music with the eye shades on. I mean, people just don't really do that, you know, and just maybe just doing that for 4 to 6 hours can really help, you know. So it's not just the SSRIs in this experiment, is it, either? It's like a whole package.